Texaco, we work from Maine to Mexico.
Ethel, how could you ever think up a sneaky scheme like that?
Say, kids, what time is it?
Good evening. I'm Peggy Scott Laborde, and welcome to TV to Remember. Tonight, as with every Sunday night, we'll be presenting further episodes of the Twilight Zone, Our Miss Brooks, Peter Gunn, and the dramatic anthology series Star Performance. Tonight, we'll be giving you more background information on our program Star Performance, which was also known as Star Playhouse. As the title implies, the show centered around 4 stars, who took turns playing leading roles in this weekly dramatic series. Dramatic anthologies were quite popular in the early years of TV, and many of them having originated on radio. Plays were broadcast experimentally on TV as early as 1929, when only silhouettes could be recognizably transmitted, and then only to another technician in another studio just a few doors away. In the early 1940s, as technology progressed, more ambitious TV dramas started to appear. Ford Theater became the first sponsored dramatic anthology series, making the transition also from radio. Another radio drama, Studio One, became Westinghouse Studio One, and in the following years, still others popped up as well, including Robert Montgomery Presents, the Philco Goodyear Playhouse, and Playhouse 90. We'll talk more about TV to Remember's anthology series Star Performance during our intermission, immediately following The Twilight Zone. And now, to The Twilight Zone. Hi, we're back, and we'll be going to Our Miss Brooks in just a few minutes. But first, we'll be talking about our series Star Performance, which was also known as Star Playhouse. Star Playhouse debuted in September 1952. It was shown on CBS on Thursday nights at 7:30. The show was originally an alternate week series, but expanded to its weekly status in 1953. The actors scheduled to appear in the show were Rosalind Russell, Joel McCrea, Charles Boyer, and Dick Powell. However, Russell and McCrea were replaced by Ida Lupino and David Niven before the show went on the air. The 4 stars starred in the series on a rotating basis, but they weren't always the headliners. Among the notables who appeared as guests were Ronald Colman, Joan Fontaine, Merle Oberon, and Frank Lovejoy. The format of each episode varied greatly, with the content ranging from comedy to drama one week, comedy to the next. And although the stars played different roles in each show, there was one exception, Dick Powell, who played ex-gambler Willie Dante, the owner of a nightclub called Dante's Inferno. In 1963, ABC resurrected this character for a very short-lived series called Dante, with Howard Duff in the title role. The very versatile Powell had started his career as a tenor in the 1930s, playing juvenile roles opposite Ruby Keeler in many of Busby Berkeley's best films. He later, as he grew older, graduated to roles of the private eye and tough guy types. And at this period in his career, his films included such classics as Farewell, My Lovely and The Bad and the Beautiful. Powell played the role of private eye Richard Diamond as well on radio from 1949 to 1952. Suave David Niven not only starred in episodes of Star Playhouse, but produced many of them as well. Later in 1959, he hosted a summer dramatic anthology titled The David Niven Show, but he only appeared in one of these stories, having hosted the rest of them. Niven gained, however, his largest audience when he starred in the witty comedy The Rogues, teaming up with Star Playhouse pal Charles Boyer, along with Gig Young, Robert Coote, and Gladys Cooper in this very elegant series. The Rogues enjoyed a healthy run beginning in 1964. Actor Charles Boyer, whose careers ranged from portraying great lover types to kindly old gentlemen, had previously appeared in various dramatic anthologies before gaining the home base in Star Playhouse. He, along with Niven, was initially scheduled to star in another anthology called The Goodyear Theater after Star went off the air. but this concept failed to click, and it went off after only one season. And the star that completes the quartet is Ida Lupino. Although she is better known as the sultry, pout-lipped actress with a deep voice, few people are aware of the fact that she is a talented director who has directed many TV shows, particularly in the 1960s and late 1960s. Lupino and her former husband, Howard Duff, starred in the series Mr. Adams and Eve a year after 4-Star went off the air. Lupino and Duff played a movie star couple, very lifelike, who encountered various situations at the movie studios and wacky dealings with their agent named Steve. This show lasted for a year, and many of the stories were actually based on incidents that had occurred to them in their real life. And now it's time for our weekly trivia quiz. And once again, I'll give you the answers when we say goodnight after Star performance. And this week we'll be talking about anthologies. Our first question: what famous series featured an elegant woman as the host, whose trademark was her dramatic entrance? And second question: Studio One, which was also known as Westinghouse Studio One, had an actress who did the commercials during the show. She later became interested in consumer affairs and is now a consumer reporter for a network. Can you name her? The General Electric Theater enjoyed a very healthy run spanning from 1953 to 1962. Can you name the host of this dramatic anthology series? Hint: he's more interested in politics these days than acting. And now for the most trivial trivia question of the week. One of the co-hosts of CBS's weekly show 60 Minutes started as a TV actor in 1950 and even hosted a game show called The Big Surprise in 1956. Can you name him? And now we're going to our Miss Brooks.
This is WYES-TV New Orleans.
Hi, we're back, and before we give the answers to the quiz, I would like to mention that next time, and for a number of the upcoming shows, I'll have as my guest David Cuthbert, TV editor of the Times-Picayune. We'll talk about various aspects of old-time TV, and of course continue with our weekly trivia quiz. And now this week's answers. What famous series featured an elegant woman as the hostess whose trademark was her dramatic entrance? Loretta Young. And the spokeswoman for Westinghouse was consumer reporter Betty Furness, who is currently featured on the Today Show. The host of GE Theater, former governor and now presidential contender Ronald Reagan. And the toughie question of the evening: which co-host of 60 Minutes started out his career as an actor and then game show host? Mike Wallace. Please join me next week on TV to Remember, and until then, good night.